There exists a unique connection that can form between individuals and animals. For instance, a young girl diligently fed a swan on a daily basis for a remarkable span of 5 years. Little did she anticipate the astonishing surprise that awaited her one fateful day. The swan bestowed upon her an unexpected and heartfelt gift. Angela lived close to the park as a kid. It was a massive park with lots of trees and even a large pond where there was a big flock of swans who lived and had their babies. Angela loved going to the park as a kid. Growing up in an apartment, they didn't have any outdoor space. Going to the park was where she could relax. During her childhood, she delighted in feeding swans and ducks, while as a teenager, she sought solace in the park, sitting beneath trees and observing the graceful swans. The park became her refuge for tears shed after arguments with her mother or unrequited love. Interacting with the animals held a special place in her heart, despite others' fears. Angela developed a profound understanding, knowing when to approach and when to maintain a safe distance. She witnessed their growth, lifelong partnerships, and the miraculous cycle of life. One day, during her later teenage years, while strolling by the pond in the midst of baby season, she encountered a heart-wrenching sight. A tiny cygnet struggled in the shallow water, entangled in a fishing line that bound its legs together. Moved by compassion, Angela approached and realized the helpless swan was alone, in urgent need of rescue. Typically, a young swan stays by its mother's side for around 4 or 5 months. However, this particular swan had been abandoned by its family. They likely recognized its increasing weakness and made the difficult decision to leave it behind. Angela approached the vulnerable baby with utmost care, gently lifting it and delicately working to untangle its tiny legs. The fragility of the swan's limbs became evident, as if a slight misstep could result in irrevocable harm. It took a long time, but finally the little swan was free, but it was struggling to lift its head. It was weak. The mother might have left her for a long time before that. Angela knew that she couldn't just place it back into the water. It was too weak to survive. She went to one of the caretakers of the park, but they just said she should put the baby back into the water and allow nature to take its course, or she could take it home and try caring for it until it was bigger and able to come back to the pond. Angela had no idea how to care for a small swan, but her alternative wasn't something she would consider, so she took the baby home into the vet. The vet explained ways that she could help the swan, what she could feed her, since it was a girl, and ways that she could help it get stronger to return to the wild. Between university classes and studying, working part-time, and now caring for a little swan. It was going to be a challenge, but one Angela was determined to live up to. She took the little swan with her wherever she went. At home, she would try to ride on Angela's feet, since they often rode on their parents' backs when getting tired. Until Angela created a duck carrier from an old backpack and filled it with tissue paper and cotton wool. This way, Odette, as Angela called her, could feel like she was traveling on the soft feathers of an adult swan. She vets her insects for the first few weeks, and then added plants and fruits into her diet. The swan got a swim in the bathtub each night, and as often as possible, they would take a walk by the lake to ensure that Odette still remembered where she came from and how it was to live among swans. She was getting bigger, and Angela knew that the time was going to come when she would have to say goodbye. An adult swan can be massive and not quite the type of pet you keep in an apartment. Besides, Odette deserved to live life as a free swan. She was starting to see other swans as her own. Each time they would go for a visit in the park, Odette would start to interact with other swans and even fly off into the pond with them. But normally she would quickly come back to Angela as soon as the girl made an attempt to leave the area. Until one day, Odette was hanging out with the other swans in the middle of the massive pond. Angela called her, but she didn't respond at all. Angela started to walk out of the park, but to her surprise, Odette made no move to join her. It seemed that the swan had decided that it was time to go home and live free. That night, Angela was worried about Odette. Would she be able to handle staying in the park all night? It was like allowing her baby to go out for her first sleepover. The next day, Angela took some of Odette's favorite food and went to the park. As soon as she arrived, Odette came over to her, putting her head against Angela's legs. She ate the food that was offered, and Angela gave some to the other swans around them too. But once again, when it was time to go, Odette stayed. She was home now, and Angela was going to have to get used to that, but that didn't mean that things would just go back to normal. Angela still came to visit the park daily and feed Odette. For 5 years, this was their routine. Angela went on to get her degree in her own apartment, but she ensured it was still within walking distance of her favorite park and close enough that she could feed Odette and her friends. Odette went on to find a male swan that she bonded with and later mated with. This was a pretty big deal since swans typically mate for life. Both the girl and the swan were getting on with life and reaching the goals that they wanted to achieve, but through it all, their incredible bond remained. Angela had assumed a nurturing role for Odette, and every day at the park, the swan would eagerly fly over to her. While the other swans and even some ducks maintained their cautious distance, they couldn't resist when Angela presented them with delicious treats. The park would come alive as the swans and ducks flocked to Angela, eager to share in the feast. Ensuring Odette received her fair share, Angela delighted in providing sustenance to the other park animals as well. However, after 5 years of their daily interactions, Angela arrived at the park to find Odette and her mate missing. Anxiety gripped Angela's heart, but she couldn't prolong her search as she had obligations and work to attend to. Week after week, Angela visited the park, yearning for Odette's presence, but the swan remained elusive. Puzzled, Angela contemplated whether Odette had relocated, although it seemed improbable for their non-migratory species. Filled with distress, Angela worried for her dear avian companion. Undeterred, Angela persisted in visiting the park, clinging to hope that Odette would reappear. Then, one Saturday, as she sat reading by the pond, a magical sight unfolded before her eyes. Odette gracefully swam towards her, igniting overwhelming happiness in Angela. Almost on the verge of tears, Angela felt immense gratitude, relieved to witness Odette's well-being and safety. Emerging from the water, Odette gracefully approached Angela. Then, in a surprising display, Odette unfurled her wings, revealing a precious surprise. From beneath her protective embrace, adorable baby swans emerged, as if Odette were presenting them to Angela. It was a gesture that defied the typical behavior of swans. The little cygnets, filled with curiosity and trust, climbed onto Angela and began exploring their surroundings, their tiny steps echoing a newfound connection between human and swan. The understanding grew within them that their mother held deep affection for this individual. As time passed, they gradually became less accustomed to human presence. Nonetheless, Angela treasured the precious memories she had been granted. Having nurtured Odette for an extended period, she could perceive the genuine gratitude the swan held and the reciprocation of love they shared. I hope you like this story. Please share